Hi, I'm Len with Hobby Universe Outdoors, and today I'm going to be talking about the John Deere X590, and I'll also talk a little bit about the John Deere X530. It'll primarily be what the differences are between these two models, as well as some of the subtle differences that John Deere has made for the model year 2023 and 2024 for the John Deere X590. I've had this tractor for a few weeks now, and as I use it, I'm starting to run into some more of these differences between the X530 and the X590 that I want to point out. I did do a previous video where I talked about some of these differences more in depth, so this will just be kind of a quick overview of the things I found before, as well as a couple additional things. Before I get started, I wanted to provide a quick recap on why it is I ended up buying the X590 to replace this X530. About 6 weeks ago, I was mowing the grass, and there was some sort of catastrophic engine failure inside this X530. I gave it a quick look over, and I'm not able to find anything obvious, but it is definitely deep inside the engine. It's locked up solid. So I will dig into that a little bit to see what I can find. And when I do that, I will record that process, and I will post that to my channel. So if you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button, and you can follow along. Starting at the dash, there are several subtle differences, and then a few what I consider to be significant changes between the X530 and the X590. One of the differences between the X590 and the X530 is going to be tilt steering. X530 doesn't have it, the X590 does. And while it's not something new to the X590 or actually several of the X500 series tractors, it's just simply something the X530 hasn't had previously. So not something I'll probably take advantage of. I'll just set it somewhere in the middle. At least that's what I've done so far, and then just kind of leave it there. But if I need it, I guess it'll be nice to have. Most of the buttons are in a similar spot as to where they were previously. They might look a little different, but you've got your PTO switch, cruise control, parking brake, reverse mow button, and then the mower lift and lower, or whatever it is. You know, maybe you got your plow or snow blower on there, whatever implement you've got on there. And then also the throttle, you've only got the throttle lever. You no longer have a choke lever like you would on the X530 or other carbureted models. And that's because this is EFI. So with the electronic fuel injection, you no longer need a choke. There are several advantages to having electronic fuel injection. The tractor seems to start faster and idle smoother right out of the gate. And now I've been told that it is more reliable compared to a carbureted model, especially in colder climates. I've only had carbureted garden tractors up until I got this X590, and we're talking for many, many years, and I've never had an issue with a carbureted model starting or running poorly, even in single-digit temperatures. I spent a lot of time plowing and using the snowblower. Again, zero issues. It's not stored in a heated garage. I just have a tractor shed, so whatever the temperature outside is, that's going to be pretty much the temperature inside that shed. So historically, I've not had any issues, but I'm pretty happy to have the EFI regardless. One other substantial change is going to be on the dash and as far as the display. They've got this little display, and it's going to show you hours and voltage, and it's got your gas gauge on there as well as some other information. That will be handy, I believe, moving forward. I think that's going to be a little bit more reliable, and it's easier to keep your eye. Another noticeable difference between the two is going to be the seat. Now, obviously, this one has seen better days. It's been chewed up pretty hard. It was actually like that when I bought it. I bought this tractor used, but the seat is a lot taller on the X590. It's actually a lot more comfortable. This is a cheap vinyl plastic. It feels very plasticky. This appears to be a stitched leather. I don't know if it's actually real leather or if it's pleather. Whatever it is, it looks nice. It's very comfortable, and it feels like it breathes a little bit better too. As far as under the seat, the suspension is definitely going to be different between the two as well, which will help quite a bit with the ride quality. Looking under the seat, you will notice a difference in the suspension between the X590 and the X530. Both use dual springs for the suspension, but on the X530, you have two pivot points. So you've got this rod running through the front of the seat, and then you have this pivot point here. And what that's going to do is when you hit a bump or a rut or that seat starts bouncing around, only the rear of the seat is going to move up and down. The front of the seat is going to stay in that position, so it's not going to be as comfortable as a ride. On the X590, you actually have 4 pivot points. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you still only have the 2 springs, which is plenty good, but now the whole seat moves up and down. So now not only is the back of the seat moving, but the front of the seat that's under your thighs and under your legs, that's also going to move. And I know for sure that is a benefit. Unfortunately, I have a very lumpy, ruddy yard, topic for another video down the road, but I did notice a difference on that for sure. So I'm happy with the new suspension under this seat. This is a shot under the seat of the X530, and one of the things you'll notice is that the deck leveling gauge is hard to get out, apparently, but it's stored under the seat, as well as this deck leveling wrench, which I go over that in another video showing you how to level the deck on the new X590. But those items are stored under here. That's really convenient. Now we're looking under the seat of the X590. You'll notice under here, this is just the frame for the suspension for the seat. There is no provision to store the deck leveling gauge or the deck leveling wrench under the seat. Those actually ship loose. Mine were in with the manual, with the tractor. Not a big deal. I have a safe place where I can kind of keep all that stuff, but it is definitely a difference. So if you're looking for a deck leveling gauge or your deck wrench on your new X590, you're not going to find it under the seat. One other thing I noticed was something, I think it's going to be primarily cosmetic, but on the X530, you have louvers in the hood. On the X590, you don't. And from what I understand, the X590 actually used to have a louvered style hood. I believe it was all the X500 series had that louver style hood, and then the X300 series did not. Well, it appears to have maybe been a cost-saving change for John Deere, because now this same hood will work across all X500 series as well as X300 series tractors. So now there's a little interchangeability. It should simplify the manufacturing and molding process a little bit for them. So again, probably cost savings. I'm not super concerned about it. It's not like I'm all of a sudden going to start having overheating issues or anything like that because I don't have those little slots in the top of the hood. It's not a big deal, other than maybe losing a little bit of the cool factor, if that's possible on a garden tractor. My wife doesn't think so. I think garden tractors are pretty cool, but that's just me. But louvers, no louvers, not a big deal. One other item I noticed, which was also probably a cost-saving measure by the manufacturer, which I am not a fan of, has to do with the battery. So this is the X530, and it has a 51R size battery in it. So if you were to go to replace this battery, you walked into a parts store somewhere, you're going to want a 51R. And also, for those that don't know, R means right side positive. That is important. So if you get the 51 without the R on it, your cables might not reach where they need to go. So anyway, so this is 425 cold cranking amps, and it is a 51R. Now we're going to take a look under the hood of the X590. One of the first things I noticed was that the size of the battery is considerably smaller in the X590. This is an RC41 series, where that was an RC51 series, and the difference is going to be cold cranking amps. The battery that came from the factory is 340 cold cranking amps. And while that's probably not going to be that big of a deal this time of the year, we're going to have to see how it responds in February when it's 7 degrees outside and this thing's been sitting out in my shed. So hopefully that doesn't cause any issues. It probably won't. But again, it was just a cost savings measure, and I'm really not a fan of it. I do feel like I gave up a little bit there. Continuing to look under the hood of the new X590, another change, again, probably a cost-saving measure, was the way the negative cable and positive cables attached to the battery. They use these little side post tabs, which, again, I'm sure it's going to be sufficient. Everything's great, right? But it's a little bit lesser of a setup when compared to the X530 series, which I will show you here. Looking again under the hood of the X530, you can see the battery terminals, these clamps, are much heavier. This is almost more of an automotive style. And also the post, you've got that top post that sticks out of the battery rather than having that tab that sticks up and then the cable terminates to the side of it. So I feel like this is a heavier setup, and maybe that change going from this style to the other style was due to going from an RC51 down to an RC41 series. Maybe that's what they come with. I'm no battery expert, but I guess that's probably going to be a safe bet. This non-discharge side, rather than just having that rolled lip on the edge of the deck, they actually have this curved piece of solid bar, steel, welded to the side of the deck. It's a lot more substantial. It's going to provide additional protection of the side of the deck. To be honest, you know, on my X530, I have rubbed up against trees and stumps and some cinder blocks or whatever, wore off the paint, but I never dented it. But if I was going to dent it, it sure would be a lot harder to do with that bar in there. One other difference that I still need to look into is regarding connecting my snowblower and the snowplow to the new John Deere X590. But it's not so much about going from an X530 to an X590. It has more to do with the age of the lawn tractor. This is a 2012, so it's an older model, and the snowblower and the snowplow I have are made to attach directly to that. Well, in I think it was 2016 maybe, John Deere changed what those brackets look like and how the things attach to the front of the tractor. So I really didn't want to have to buy a new snowblower and a new snowplow. Those things aren't cheap. The ones I have are in perfectly fine condition. So I talked to the John Deere dealer, and we were able to find an adapter kit that should allow me to use those older implements on this new tractor. He actually has no experience with them. He had never even heard of it or knew it existed. We found it, you know, just poking around Google a little bit. He ordered it. We got it in. I have to pick it up later this week. When I do, I will create a video when I put that stuff on, just to see kind of how it goes together and to make sure it works okay. Certainly not something I want to try to get figured out in February. I would really like to have that up and running, at least have an understanding of how it's going to work before I have a foot of snow outside, because that would just make me grouchy, right? So when I do that, I'll create the video. I'll add it to my channel, Hobby Universe Outdoors. If you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. I hope you liked it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.